Hello, my name is Guy and my wife Susan and I have been living in our mud brick house in Eltham for around 10 years. I'd like to start this video by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land where I live. I value their history, which has helped shape the unique character of Eltham. This video focuses on three aspects of our home, namely our battery-based solar system, our electric car and our vegetable and fruit growing. On the day, we will be working with a local community group to provide test drives in our car plus tours of our edible garden. In passing, in terms of the house itself, the mud brick provides reasonable insulation, and beyond that we are broadly content for the temperature inside the house to go up and down according to the season. So, whilst we have split system air conditioning, we hardly ever use it. The philosophy underlying both our solar system and our electric car is to minimise our use of the world's resources. Our solar system comprises 28 panels, giving a total generating capacity of about 7 kilowatts per hour, an inverter and a 14 kilowatt battery. The substantial number of panels means that we produce more electricity than we use for around 9 months of the year. The battery means that we can store this surplus electricity during the day and then use it at night without needing to use any electricity from the grid. So we are effectively off-grid for 9 months of the year. But we don't want our excess electricity to be wasted, so we stay on the grid and export our excess. To give you some idea of scale, we generate an average of around 9 kilowatt hours per day in winter, rising to around 36 kilowatt hours per day in summer. We first installed our system in 2014. It worked, but the batteries were a bit of a pain. For unclear maintenance reasons, they had to be effectively switched off for substantial periods of time every month. We also weren't allowed to fully discharge them, and they started degrading soon after we acquired them. This year we bit the bullet and decided to replace the batteries, and it is clear that battery technology has undergone a transformation since 2014. Our new batteries now work as you might expect. The battery comes with a smartphone app which gives us information about what is happening in real time and which also allows us to download the historical information into Excel. The app also allows us to manage when and how the battery is used. For example, in its default configuration, any daytime electricity generation above what we are using is sent to the battery until it is full, after which the surplus is exported to the grid. And conversely, during the night time, our electricity usage is supplied by the battery until it is empty, after which we import from the grid. But we can reserve part of the battery for emergency usage, which is useful when there is a planned early morning power outage, which are actually quite common in Eltham. And we can use time-based controls such that the battery usage is concentrated into the peak periods only, which saves some money during the winter months. Now, those of you with keen eyesight might have noticed that our battery is Tesla. For what are, I think, reasonably obvious reasons, I really didn't want to spend any money with a company whose largest shareholder is Elon Musk, and I mean really didn't want. But after much investigation and many discussions, I found that there simply aren't any other batteries in Australia currently that would do the job. That takes me on to our electric car, where we did successfully avoid Tesla. Our car is a 2019 Hyundai Kona Electric Highlander. It is a small SUV which we effectively bought new for around $60,000. Depending on driving style, its range is at least 400 kilometres. In the media, there is a lot of talk about range anxiety with electric cars, which I assume is the worry that one might run out of electricity and be stranded in the middle of nowhere. In our experience, however, range anxiety is a complete nothing burger. First, the way that we charge our car is that we plug it in at home whenever it needs charging. So any possible range anxiety issues can only arise if we're wanting to drive more than 400 kilometres before next being at home. Second, there are actually lots of fast charging stations around Australia, which means that you can go to most places so long as you do a bit of planning. For example, we drove to the Blue Mountains in May in the car, including lots of detours for sightseeing purposes, without any dramas. And even in extremis you can simply plug the car into any power socket and charge it, albeit slowly. At any point in time, the car tells you your rate of electricity consumption plus your remaining range, and your smartphone tells you the location of all the charging stations. When we first got the car, we simply plugged it in overnight to charge it. During winter, this effectively means that we're charging it using electricity from the grid. From a sustainability perspective, that means no use of fossil fuels because our electricity provider is 100% renewables, no generation of carbon dioxide and no emission of pollution. But it still means that we are consuming resources that other people could otherwise use. During the summer, this approach wouldn't be optimal because it would mean using electricity from the grid at night while simultaneously exporting electricity to the grid during the day. Luckily, the car has an app which allows us to control the timing and rate of its charging. So by changing the timing so that the car charges during the day, plus reducing the charging rate to something close to the rate at which we're generating surplus, we should be able to keep the car fully charged without using any electricity from the grid. In other words, during the summer at least, we will be totally self-sufficient, including the car. So what is the car like to drive? I would say that it is a mixture of joy and different. The joy comes from two main things. One, it is silent. Two, there is no gap between pressing the accelerator and the car responding. You feel at one with the car. The different also comes from two things. One, the brakes are regenerative, which means that the car automatically slows down if you take your foot off the accelerator. This actually makes the car very different to drive than a petrol car, although I'm now used to it. Two, one can change lots of settings on the fly. For example, one can press a button and the car becomes much sportier, or press another button and switch regenerative braking off. Overall, it is a very different experience to driving a petrol car, hence our offer of test drives. That's all about our solar system and car. Now onto our edible garden. Our original motivation in moving out to Eltham was to start growing vegetables and fruit, partly for sustainability reasons and partly as a joint hobby. Our edible garden currently comprises around 20 raised beds for growing vegetables and herbs, around 50 different fruit and nut trees, irrigation from 2 large water tanks which are filled by roof water, and eggs from our chickens. In principle, we could grow more than enough to meet our total needs. In practice, however, that would lead to a very humdrum diet in winter. More kale, anyone? Most of the raised beds are on a flat area that was previously a working tennis court when we first moved in. The flatness is obviously good for vegetable growing. Less obviously, the scorious surface is also okay because the clay soils in Eltham mean that one really has to use raised beds for growing veggies. And, as I'm increasingly discovering, raised beds are also the way to go as one grows older. Some of the beds are used for growing perennials such as rhubarb, asparagus and a variety of herbs. The other beds are organised in a crop rotation system, which means that there is a gap of around 5 years between plantings of veggies from the same family in the same place. This helps stop particular diseases building up and also gives the soil a rest from particular burdens placed on it. After a number of years, growing vegetables becomes a bit repetitive, even if one experiments with new species and new varieties. So in recent years, we have increasingly focused on growing fruit and nut trees. We have all the usuals, e.g. apples, cherries, citrus, grapes, peaches, plums and a variety of berries. Others that are reasonably commonplace, such as almonds, avocado, feijoa, fig, guava, kiwi fruit, mulberry, passion fruit, pear, pecan, pomegranate, olive and walnut, plus some unusual ones, for example banana, custard apple and japotica. And yes, our bananas have successfully had edible bananas. There isn't much fruit available in the garden during winter when this video was produced, the main exception being citrus. So, my time is now up. I hope you found some of it of interest and maybe see you on the day.